A sweet day. Mrs. Morris lives on the top floor of our building. Every afternoon, she takes the elevator down to the lobby. She sits in a chair near the big front door. I like seeing her there every day after school. On Monday, I was the first student off the school bus. I hurried up the steps and opened the glass door of our apartment building. "Hi, Mrs. Morris," I called. "Good afternoon, Lily," Mrs. Morris said. She gave me a great, big, cheerful smile. Mrs. Morris listened while I told her about my day at school. She told me about her morning in the kitchen and held out a box of cookies. "Oh, a fruit bar, my favorite kind," I said happily. Mrs. Morris nodded in agreement. Mrs. Morris smiled and said, "Sweets for the sweet. Go ahead and have another one, Lily." Then the twins from apartment 3G came in and Mrs. Morris held out her box. My friends Tammy and Lynn got home next. Every child who came in the building stopped to greet Mrs. Morris and have a snack. Their faces lit up when they saw her. Mrs. Morris was happy to see them all. "Sweets for the sweet," she smiled. On Tuesday, we had a super hard test. I forgot my lunch. My teacher moved my seat away from Tammy's. It was a bad day. After school, I was eager to see Mrs. Morris's smile and hungry enough to eat 10 cookies. I skipped up the steps and into the building, but the big stuffed chair was empty. This had never happened before. But I put 2 and 2 together. I looked for Mr. Lowe, the elevator man, and asked him if Mrs. Morris was sick. "Mrs. Morris is not feeling well. She is staying in bed today." "I miss her too," Mr. Lowe said. I wondered what I could do to make Mrs. Morris feel better. When Mom heard the news, she suggested that we bake cookies for our neighbor. It was a terrific idea. We got out flour, sugar, butter, and oatmeal. Oatmeal cookies are healthy. We put dates in the cookies too. Maybe they could really make Mrs. Morris better. Mom and I talked while we measured and stirred. I told her about my bad day. While the cookies baked, we cleaned up. It was close to supper time when the cookies were done. "Let's heat up some chicken soup," Mom said. "Then we can bring the soup and cookies up to Mrs. Morris." I rang the doorbell, and in a minute the door opened. "Mrs. Morris, we brought you some healthy cookies and soup," I said. "We hope you feel better soon." Mrs. Morris smiled and thanked us. "I feel better already," she said. On the way back to our apartment, I said, "I feel better too. It isn't a bad day anymore."